Hey, all you folks from Marianwood, Providence. It's really fun to have you here at my garden. And I've heard you got a pretty cool garden, so it'll be fun to show you mine. You can compare which one you like the best. Okay, so we're in my back garden right now. And Mary and I, my wife Mary and I, actually divide the gardens into his and her gardens because she's an expert gardener, I'm an expert gardener, and let's put it this way, it's cheaper than marriage counseling, you know. So one of the things that I love is to have a lot of the sound of water in my garden. So I built all of these fountains, although the old man that you see back there, that was actually made for me by a couple of my friends. They're garden artists, very famous, Little and Lewis. But, right now the birds are kind of hiding because I'm sitting here talking and everything, but most of the time there's birds in this fountain all the time, and the hummingbirds actually go to the old man's mouth and drink the water that comes out of his mouth and ride it down to the base and drinking it, come back up and ride it down and ride it down. And if I don't, I have to take the filters out of these fountains every night because the raccoons come. And for some reason, they want to eat them. I don't know why. I find them ripped up all over the garden. So I turn the fountains off at night, and I just take the ones that the raccoons can get at out of there. But if I don't turn these fountains on in the morning, the hummingbirds come and they stand right in front of me going, beep, 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 beep. Turn that fountain on. I want that water. Okay, just show you a couple of cool plants. So see these big ones with the red flowers standing up? Now they're almost done blooming for the year. But they're called Lobelia tupa. They come from Chile. And boy, is that a hummingbird plant if you've ever seen one. And that really cool persicaria with the red flowers over there, that's called Fat Domino. And I don't know if it's named after Fats Domino or not. So those are just a couple of my favorite plants. Some people ask me sometimes, do you know how many plants you actually have in your garden? I don't think I have enough toes and fingers to even get close to counting that high. Okay. So I love vertical plants that climb. So this clematis is called Gypsy Queen, and it is just a performer. Blooms all summer long. And look at this hardy fuchsia right here. I think it's called Queen Esther, but I'm not sure about that. But look at that color combination. I won't even admit that it was a total accident, but I love it. I take full credit for the whole thing, you know. And these cool yellow flowers are a ligularia. But the thing I love here is just the combination of all these rich colors, beautiful foliage. And I'm a big dahlia guy, so I love dahlias. And this is one of my all-time favorites. It stays nice and small. It has red foliage, and it's called Happy Face. And whenever I see it, it makes me happy as can be. And I'll give you a little garden tip here, and that is that, you know, you got to keep deadheading. If you don't cut off the flowers when they start getting spent, then the plant it knows it's on earth to reproduce. And so if it knows that it can go to seed, if you don't cut that off right away, they go to seed. Then they go, I've done my job. I've reproduced. Now I can kick back, get a good suntan, do nothing for the rest of summer, you know. So I always cut these off as soon as they're spent. But how do you know if they're spent if you didn't get out and cut them off? Well, if the buds are round like that, that's going to flower. If they're pointed like that, that's a spent flower. That has to come off. That's already trying to make seeds. So a lot of people don't know about it. It's kind of cool. By the way, I do a lot of containers in this garden, and you could see that really cool flower or beautiful foliage right there. So a lot of times when I do a container, I go to the tropical garden department at somewhere like Malbach's, and buy tropical plants. Most people would only grow those house plants, but I like to put them out in the garden. Look at all the color on that croton. And then the best part about it is at the end of the year, you get to bring them inside and have a beautiful house plant. So the only problem is you can end up with so many house plants that you have to take a malaria pill before you walk in the house. Oh la la! So one of the things I love is garden art. And I collect it everywhere. I go to garden art shows. I'm always looking for it. And so there's some really cool garden art in this garden. So I think you could see that little Buddha hiding in there. And I think he is just the coolest looking little guys. Those big bottles back there, those came from Vietnam. And I just think they're some of the coolest garden art. I'm always looking for things that are really different. And something really special are those African masks back there. And I bargained for those in the back streets of Marrakesh in Morocco. And it was really fun. And I think I'm a pretty good bargainer. I'll bet I paid 5 times what somebody who knew what they were doing could have got them for. But I sure love them. So people are really surprised that we can grow bananas in Seattle, but you really can. These are Musa Baju. They're hardy bananas from the Himalayan mountains. And every once in a while, if you're really lucky, you get bananas. So that's going to be a big bunch of bananas. The actual bananas are where those flowers are, around that thing in the middle. I don't know what that thing in the middle is, but the bananas grow around that. And these are little bananas. They only get, 4 inches long. And people ask me, well, are they good tasting? Let me put it this way. If you eat one of those bananas, you'll never need to eat another prune for the rest of your life. They're like eating plastic. They're the worst tasting things I've ever had. They actually use them to make beautiful fabric in China and Japan. But it's really fun to see them. There's only one problem with growing bananas. It's so hard to get those monkeys out of your garden. So if you think growing roses is too much work, so many friends tell me, I love roses, but you got to spray them, you got to fertilize them and everything. Well, I grow roses that never need spraying. And so this is one of my all-time favorite. It's called South Africa. I have never sprayed this. It has absolutely no disease. And it's been blooming all summer. Took a little break, but now it's blooming again. I do fertilize it. I use a mix of alfalfa meal. That's horse food. But it's got micronutrients in it that tell your plant, bloom you fool, bloom. And I add organic rose food. And boy, I'll tell you, you can't beat this. You do need to deadhead them, so when a flower starts to look too old, you're going to want to cut that off just so that it keeps blooming. But more and more the nurseries are carrying these roses that just never need spraying. That's the way to go. And look at it in combination with this fantastic salvia. This is called Amistad, but I just think this combination is incredible, and the hummingbirds are nuts for that salvia right there. Come here, Leo. These are my 2 gardening companions right here. This is Izzy and Leo. Come here, Leo. Come here. Oh, and little Leo. And they're both puppy rescues. And we have no idea what they are, but we love to live and tweedle out of them, I can tell you that much. So this is my favorite plant in the yard. It's called honeybush, and it's Melianthus major, Antonow's blue. And Antonow was a really famous gardener from our area that passed away some years ago. But I just love the tropical look of this plant. Now, it comes from South Africa. And in South Africa, and here sometimes, they get great big red flowers that grow up. Now, interestingly, the foliage of this plant is really poison. Even from touching it like this, I need to wash my hands before I eat something. But the big red flower, I saw people in Africa just snap the flower off and drink the nectar right out of the flower. So interestingly, the foliage is very poison, but the flower is beautiful and delicious. So, and this is a really cool Hinoki cypress too, called Kameni hiba. But watch out, you never know when there's an alligator hiding underneath. So you'll notice there's a lot of big stones in this garden. I brought every one of those giant outcropping stones to this house to put here. The only problem is I had a little boo-boo with this one. I put it through the side of the house and followed it with the bulldozer. So marriage counseling really is getting expensive. By the way, this is a plant I really, really love. It's called Albizia julibrissin summer chocolate, but most people call it chocolate mimosa. And as a big, tall tree, they're not that pretty. They thin out too much. So what I do is I cut them down close to the ground and grow them like a shrub. And I think that is one of the coolest plants you can get.